Okay, the main thing we want to do after we've thanked everybody, which we just did, is talk about where we go from here. We've all learned things today, I hope, from both the plenary address and the breakout sessions we attended. And we asked you earlier to think about, as you're doing in the breakout sessions, come up with a challenge from your breakout session. So we'd like to first invite people to just give us their challenge. And we'd like you to use a mic. I think all these mics are alive. And then we'll having heard all that, we'll put out the question, so what are we thinking we can do from here beyond what we know is going on right now in the restorative justice arena in the Philadelphia metropolitan area? So, without singling out groups, we'll let you volunteer to present a challenge from your group. Surely somebody wants to be first.
And we're going to record all these challenges and send them out to you later, okay? So you have a record of them. I hope so.
It's on, I think.
We were in the first session of Heart to Heart, my colleague and I, and my new colleague. And the challenge that came out of that was to recognize and connect with your judgments and recognize and connect with the needs underneath, or the underpinning needs. So I wasn't quite sure, we weren't quite sure if that's the type of challenge. That's a challenge to individuals. Do you want to say more?
Well, I can. It's not a problem. I guess the question is, because we learned a lot, it was very insightful, but again, not allowing people to determine who you are, learning who you are, and valuing yourself, not let people put judgments on you, and seeking the life, longing, and belonging, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to challenge individuals to do the same. As agents of change, we all should look within ourselves, look and see who we can help, and things of that nature.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, come forward, please, to a mic.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I was in the second session of Heart to Heart.
Good.
And I think one of the challenges we came out of that was creating the safe spaces that we can have open dialogue, because that's what we were doing in the Heart to Heart session. I don't know whether that's for individuals or community or what.
Well, it is for individuals, but it's also how organizations like Heart to Heart make it possible for individuals and challenge individuals. So it's not just each of us going inside, but it's bigger than that, I think. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I was in Kevin Beckel's breakout session in regards to the intensive prevention program, and I wanted to challenge the group and moving forward in writing policy to further break it down according to gender, because females experience certain things different than males, and we did talk about racial disparities, but a lot of the policy that's coming out, like my brother's keeper, the president in the initiative is focused only on males and boys of color, which kind of makes the black female invisible because she's not in the framework to begin having a discussion. So I challenge to break down restorative justice and what it would look like from a female experience.
That's terrific, thank you.
I had the unique experience of popping in on almost all the different sessions this afternoon, and one of the things that struck me is there's a common denominator going back. Is Kevin Bethel still here? Yeah, is that every single one of the groups, I think, had something to contribute to what you're trying to do. For example, the mural arts, getting kids who were interested in that involved through part of the services you provide.
Thank you very much. So can we hear from Restorative Conference, Mural Arts, Youth Court, challenges that came out of that, those experiences, of those of you who went to one of those?
Not in that group, but I just thought one of
It's
the
okay.
challenges that surprised me today was the fact that there's a whole group of folks who are incarcerated now who are my age who could be getting out. Okay, and the question is, the whole world has changed so radically from when many of those folks went into prison, and now when they come out, there's a tremendous amount of need. You know, you look at it, somebody with a 20-year sentence, you know, look at how the world has changed. You know, they didn't have Twitter, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have computers, you know, before they went in. All of a sudden now they're getting out of jail and expect to survive in our environment. So I think one of the challenges is to address some of their needs.
Yes, and restorative justice is the whole spectrum, including the reentry and the reintegration into society, which is a very difficult thing, and not so much the focus today, but I think extremely important, what you just said. Others?
I'm not sure if this is one of the, it's not one of the breakout groups, but it's from the keynote address. The challenge that I recognize is that these practices are really useful for the criminal legal system or when people have perpetrated violence or been the victims of them, but it's also a challenge to use them in our everyday lives. So what it would mean to really try to implement them in family, with coworkers. So it's not just practices that like others can use in a certain context, but that we really can be finding it within ourselves to exercise them on a regular basis and to really try to find, I was also in Heart to Heart, just coming from there, to try to find empathy for people and circumstances that you don't necessarily feel empathetic about, like, you know, someone who's running for political office who is racist. What would it mean to try to understand that person from a place of their needs and to feel empathy for where they're coming from? So it's for lots of different places and for interpersonal interaction as well.
Thank you, Tricia. Anyone else want to contribute a challenge? Yes, please.
I attended the mural arts session, and I've known of mural arts. I've worked with Robin and James for a very long time. One of the challenges that you hear resounding with organizations like theirs that do the grassroots work, they had two young gentlemen who spoke about their experiences from Gritterford and from coming out from the Philadelphia prison system. And one of the challenges that came out of that session, because you hear these gentlemen talk about the restorative experiences that they have had and are having, and the question was asked, well, how can we expand this? Funding. Funding is a very big challenge in all of this work that we're doing, and I think that really needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
I was in the restorative conferencing this morning, and the key for me was there are more victims than meet the eye. We did a role play, and I became aware of self-biases because I only saw the apparent victim and did not recognize readily that the family members of the offenders were also victims in the situation, and perhaps the offender, him or herself, might be a victim as well. So I think the challenge would be to recognize our own biases, and then to also be able to see who else might be victimized in the situation.
Thank you.
So good afternoon. This morning, I attended the youth court workshop, and this afternoon I attended Deputy Bethel's workshop. And so I just want to say two things that I see as a challenge. The first being that there's so much great work going on. One of the things the gentleman said this morning was the limited resource they had in schools to address things like conflict resolution with a young person who may have been in a fight or violent and who just didn't have those skills. But the challenge is the fact that we work in so many isolated silos that there's a tremendous amount of work in the communities being done by folks who you never even know of the agency or the work, and then what ends up happening is the young person or the person that we're serving, male, female, young or old, doesn't get what they need just because we aren't operating in a collaborative fashion, or we don't know if the resources are out there and don't have the relationship. So I challenge all of us to kind of expand our networks and figure out a way that we can kind of share information, resources, best practices, the whole gamut, so that we can better serve our communities. The second thing that really struck me, I don't know if it's still is, but Deputy Bethel said that once they, looked at the way the practices were going, and what was happening to young people in the schools, in terms of arrest, he said they did a hard stop, meaning completely stop the traditional practices of taking kids out of school who were in a fight, or the hoodies or the cell phone or whatever, and create a way to kind of divert them so they're not in the system. And I think that, we look at, we had a discussion early on one of the, network sessions, that there's a lot of work being done around issues of poverty, around issues of sexism and racism and, criminal justice. But the system itself, we fight these small battles, hoping for big victories. And at some point, I think we have to redesign our approach and create a hard stop and start new. And I know that's complicated. I know that's a little bit of a mental challenge for most of us to wrap our head around. But I don't know if we can continue along the path without doing a hard stop and really kind of reframing our whole process, the way we treat people, the way we interact, the way we trust, the way we communicate. Because we can heal the individual, restorative justice process can heal the individual, but we gotta expand our thinking to not only the individual, but the victim, the community that they're gonna return to, because that's truly restorative to me, because ultimately, a person can be diverted, we can do 10 years in prison, we can, whatever, get therapy or whatever intervention, and going back to the same environment. And that environment oftentimes kind of breeds the response that we see. So I hope that we can accept that challenge to really look at our whole environment holistically and revamp our approach to do that hard stop and share information and resource collaboratively.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, that's quite a challenge, so thank you.
I have participated now in 2 of these conferences, and I think the common denominator in both is empathy. And the last one was dealing with trauma-informed care, and everyone here today, I think, has a heightened level of sensitivity and empathy that they bring to their work and to their lives. And given what's going on nationally, that we turn on the TV every day, that is not a common denominator, at least what I hear. And so I think the challenge is to bring what we are doing here to the larger stage, the national stage. And I don't know how we as a silent, maybe minority, take it in a bigger way, but we need to do a better job of broadcasting some of the things that we're talking about, so that people start, rather than fearing, feel for other people and feel that level of empathy that I think is being exhibited here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, could I piggyback on that? Just to piggyback on that a little bit, I was in the Restorative Conference breakout this afternoon, and I actually had this thought, as he was implying, as Rob was implying, that we shouldn't wait until sometime this summer when these conferences are needed desperately because of some violence breaking out. We should actually be preparing now for how we can be presenting ourselves known already entities to jump into some situations in the country that are going to need these restorative circles. That's one thought I have. The second thing is the church, the Catholic Church that I belong to, desperately needs some of these healing circles. And I would love to have some of these restorative conferences or other healing circles, heart-to-heart going on in our Catholic Church to help us get beyond simply the legal responses to these sexual abuse and cover-up situations. If it's all just done in the courts, it's a disaster. Nothing's healed. You just have money going back and forth and more anger. And the other thing I want to mention, the gentleman who mentioned action earlier today, a real good challenge for us, because we could wind up talking about these all the time. Any ways we can take actions, whatever it is, or join the actions on the street that are going on right now to bring our concerns and our empathy into those actions is really important.
Well, I think there's two dimensions. There's obviously many more than two, but two dimensions to this enterprise that we're talking about right now. One is that the people who are part of this coalition, and by the way, we're very happy to expand the coalition, the Philly Restorative Justice Coalition, a lot of us are doing grassroots work in a particular aspect of what is under the umbrella of restorative justice. So the reentry court that Judge Rice runs, for example, and the Ministry of Adeodatas, and the whole range, work with mural arts. And the great thing about it, but also the weakness, is that they're all different and they're all completely absorbing to the people who are working in them. So we're not looking to bureaucratize, get some umbrella organization that would somehow waste a lot of our time not helping, you know what I mean? But the other thing is that we are doing these things separately. The coalition allows us to know about each other and to draw on each other as resources. For example, I have students in the service learning class volunteering in Greg's youth court, and that's a great thing, and I wouldn't have happened if I hadn't met Greg through this coalition. That happens all over the place. And we invite all of you who want to be involved in more networking through letting everybody else know what you're doing and how we could get involved with each other to do that. Mm-hmm. But we are at these two levels. One is we want the big picture, we want to address the big picture, but at the same time, most of us are working very hard on one small part of the picture. Yes. Some of them are specialized. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd like to just throw it open to all of you. What do you think would be useful next steps for the folks in this room and the folks that put this conference together? Mm-hmm. That would take us maybe one step forward toward larger picture action.
Madalena.
Yeah, I just have a logistical point. Like if
you want to come to the mic?
I have a logistical point. If you think of something that you want to put in like paragraph form or just think of something afterwards, you can always feel free to send it to our email address, which is billyrjc@gmail.com. It's also on the sheet where the organizations that are represented. So it's billyrjc, all lowercase, at gmail.com. So you can share it now, but if you have additional thoughts, feel free to do that.
And to tag onto that, there's an evaluation sheet in your folder that if you can fill that out and hand it at the desk on the way out, you might even add a point or two like that on the sheet itself. I would like to say this. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think one thing might be helpful would be like some kind of, in my mind, I think the key is education and discussion and community. And if there was some type of restorative justice toolkit that I could bring to my local township and just get a group of parents, and I know the chief of police might show up, and people that run the library and people on the school board, and that could be like the first part of the toolkit. Who would you invite churches, learning how to welcome ex-offenders when they come back to the community. Obviously, we talk a lot about the juvenile justice component, alternatives to juvenile justice. So it seems like there's these common leverage points in my mind that the local community can be educated about. I know, and it also, it is very siloed, but in my mind it is connected, whether you're talking about trauma, domestic violence, drug overdose, high school dropouts, like it's all the same social issues. And I don't see our leadership, whatever stage, national or state, really being able to, maybe eventually it'll trickle up like a true grassroots, where it would trickle up. But I think your local township and then your county, if you could like just do it on that level and think small. But so it's a long way of saying, I think a restorative justice toolkit to have a series of forums. What would be the key discussion points, and what would be the hopeful goals, and then you could have subcommittees, and could really grow organic. Would be my suggestion.
That strikes me as something doable also.
To go off of what that gentleman just said about education, I just think that for maybe recommendations as far as education and awareness goes, I didn't know about restorative justice until I got to college, and I went through high school, 4 years of high school, not knowing anything about it. And I think that I was very involved in clubs in high school, and I think that peer educators are a big step to that. So, and what made me think of it was when in the first session of the youth center, youth court, the kid said that, one of the students said, I'm only in the class because it was on my roster. What if the kid fell in love with like restorative justice and he wanted to take a step forward? And maybe that was a one-time deal for him. He could only take that class once. And then there wasn't a group or a club that was formed in that school. And I think that just having a group and a club in high school, and then undergoing workshops on how to educate your peers on restorative justice and in all aspects of it will really reach out to the youth, because that's the future, and that's who's going to take us there. You know?
Thank you.
Sometimes I'm a synthesizer, so I guess what I want to say, maybe a synthesizing. I'm thinking there's 3 things we could do, and I've heard all 3 things, but maybe I'll just put them together. One is, it seems like what we've done very well is been an educating coalition who runs conferences. So thinking one thing we can do is, if this was a good thing for us, then we could say, let's just commit to doing this on an annual basis, at a regular time, and touching a growing number of people. And I think it gets easier if you just systematize it. So that's one thing, just do this again and make that a commitment. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I love the idea, and you said, Sister Bessie said it's doable, is a restorative justice toolkit. A simple educational tool that folks in high schools or colleges or faith communities could get, and along with some resources that can include all the members. So I think that would be part of our educational mission that I really like, and that could be a simple thing that we could do all year round. And then maybe the third thing that I think Madalena hinted at this is simply commit to growing the movement, growing the membership, and having a simple way in which individuals could be members and organizations could be members. Maybe there's a really affordable fee, but maybe a fee helps create buy-in. That we feel like we belong to a growing movement, and it's simply a structure to grow membership, so that we could see 200 people this year, 400 people next year, 600 people the year following, and all of a sudden our toolkit is in 4 communities, 8 communities, 30 communities. So those 3 things, I heard them all, so I didn't create any of them, but I like them all, and I think that could be a simple way to put some feet on our heart, some feet on what we want to do, is educate our broader circle on the reality of restorative justice and what the good it could do for all of us.
Thank you, that's very helpful. I hope by the fact that this is being filmed, that all of this is gonna be recorded, because I haven't taken notes, but I'm expecting it's all there for future work. Madeleine? Madeleine, and then you decide.
I just, on the last note about continuing the movement, I just want, my name is Susan Brooks. I'm at Drexel University at the law school there, and I'm going to be organizing, or I am organizing, a conference that's going to be from June 3rd to 5th. And the registration information will be out very shortly, and I'll certainly share with the organizers of this conference. It has a little bit of a broader focus on restorative practices, beyond just restorative justice, along the lines of some of the earlier comments about thinking about this in a broader, in a sense, peace building kind of way. So I hope to see many of you there, and I think this is a really important movement, and I hope we can continue to grow it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say too, I went to I guess I just want to say, when you think about restorative justice, there's so many different pieces of it, and it can be overwhelming. And so many different things that can fit into it, as you saw from the diversity of the conference and the participants. But not to let the overwhelming nature of it stop you from doing something or from looking into it. I didn't know anything about restorative justice when Rob asked me to help organize the coalition. I still don't know a lot. I feel there's just so much to know. But I think an important part, I went to a lecture at Eastern State Penitentiary. They had a spotlight series, which is I think the first Tuesday of every month in Fairmount. They have a free talk from 6 to 7 p.m. At Eastern State. So Searchlight or Spotlight, I forget which one. But if you just go to their website. Anyway, they get people from the criminal justice system. So this one was specifically about restorative justice. And this woman, Barbie Fisher, was saying that it's a continuum. And that really stuck with me. That restorative justice isn't an all or nothing. It's not, you don't have to completely transform something in order to say now we have restorative justice. It's little steps that you can take. And you can be here on the spectrum, you can be here, but you can still be practicing restorative justice and incorporating restorative practices, even if you can't turn around the whole system, which is not realistic in a lot of cases. So just to not be discouraged if you can't overturn something, but just introducing aspects into an existing thing.
Well, I would just want to add to that, not only does taking the steps you can take and having other people take the steps they can take maybe ultimately lead to actually changing the system. But the other thing is, in the meantime, you're doing something good right now for somebody. Somebody is being reconciled. Somebody is having his or her experience heard, recognized, honored, affirmed, and on the line. All of the things that people in this room are already doing are good things. Should we wind it up? Is that-
Yeah, can I write a little poem? You
Sure. Go ahead.
Just to repeat the excitement of being part of the energy of a movement. A movement is happening like from some spirit, right? Some spirit that's moving all of us, that's bigger and deeper than all of us. And if I can read a little poem to end on a poetic note, it has something to do with accountability, right, for our actions and healing of hurts, but I think ultimately of freedom we want for everybody and ourselves. And I was going into the prison at Philadelphia Prison a couple years ago, and I was trying to get into the prison, and they're trying to get out. And I'm really sort of like getting frustrated because the doors are locked, and it's the changing of the guard time, and I want to get in to see the prisoners, and I thought, and they want to get out. I'm trying to get in. And this poem came to me. On the street, you can be free as a lark, yet chained in the prison of your heart. You can be chained in a dungeon dark, yet free as a bird in your heart. So, everybody, let's be free.
I think it's been a great day,
It has been.
and it's been a great group of folks that are here. What else can I say? Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much.